So if you think about this issue of what happens when you're under an emotional state and you're trying to predict how you would feel and how you would behave and what kind of decision you would make when you're not in an emotional state, we call this an intra-empathy problem. Because what you're trying to understand is how you would be under an emotional state. Usually when you think about empathy, it's about how you understand somebody else. But in this case, it's about your own state. So you can think about what happens when you're in an emotional state, you're angry with somebody, and you say to yourself, how would I behave later when I'm not angry? And you probably mispredict your anger. You think that your later self would be as angry. And the same thing is when you're in a cold state right now. You're not hot, you're not aroused, and so on. And you ask yourself, how would I behave later when I'm aroused or angry, and so on. And there's lots of examples for that. One of them is a beautiful example about movies. When you ask people about what movies they think they should watch, people often think that kind of high-class French movies without subtitles and black and white and maybe things like Schindler's List and so on. These are good movies they should watch in principle. And sometimes when they have Netflix, they put those movies in a high place in their queue because they basically think that they should be the kind of people who watched these movies. But what happened when people basically go to watch a movie? Now they're in a different state. It's not in principle for later, it's for now. And what happened is that people end up renting way too often things like Rambo. Now nothing bad about Rambo, but instead of renting the things that are good for us in principle, we rent the kind of things that would fulfill our desires tonight. And these are often much simpler movies in languages we understand, not so black and white, and not so high-class movies. Another example is another experiment by George Lowenstein and his colleagues. And in this experiment, they got people in the gym to figure out how important are water-related causes in the world. Right? How much money would you give? How much effort? Would you join a charity dinner? Would you donate your time, your money into those charities? And they basically got people either when they just started exercising, so they were not very thirsty, or they waited a while, and they got them when they were thirsty. And what happened? The moment people became thirsty, all of a sudden they had higher empathy with other people who might be thirsty as well, and they were willing to contribute more money, more time. They thought that charities were more important. Now, when you became more thirsty, food-related causes did not become more interesting for you, just water-related causes. Now, if you think about it, there's a question of how do you create a charity dinner? Many charity dinners, you bring people in, they eat well, they drink well, and then somebody comes on stage and tries to ask them for money, tell them what a good charity it is. I think a much better approach is not to give them any food and not to give them any drinks. In fact, you want to tell them in advance to come prepared for a wonderful meal and maybe not to eat the whole day. And then you get them to sit there. And maybe you even get the smells from the kitchen to come in, and they have plates and forks and so on, but the food is not there yet. And now you tell them how important it is, and now you get them to have higher empathy to these causes, what it feels like to be hungry and thirsty and so on. And my prediction is that now they would give much more money.